Hey everyone, I often get asked about how is it that I set up my local development environment, and I'm going to be showing you in particular how I set up my Windows development environment whenever I get a new machine. So we'll go ahead and cover that in this video. Okay, so here we are with a fresh install of Windows 10. It's my first login. One of the things that I like to do when I get a fresh desktop is of course set up my development environment. So I'm going to show you how I like to get set up. Alright, so one of the first things that I'm going to do is set up Chocolatey, which is a package manager for Windows in case you're not familiar with it. And I use Chocolatey to install all my development tools, all my utilities and all that. So I'm going to show you just how to get that going. And what we want is the PowerShell command, which is this one here. So I'm going to copy it to the clipboard, and I'm going to open up a PowerShell prompt. And now make sure to right click it and run as administrator. So that I don't get prompted anymore, I'm just going to click on show details, change notifications when they appear. I'm going to turn it off because I don't like getting prompted all the time about this. It's basically disabling the UAC. Alright, let me try it again. PowerShell, right click it, run as administrator. And now we're going to paste in the command that we got from the Chocolatey site. So again, you just click on copy, right click in here, hit enter. And again, this is a fresh install Windows 10. I'm using a VM on my Mac. I wanted to make sure I had a clean environment. Okay, so now it's installed. And let's validate. So I'm going to type in Choco. Let's make this bigger. So right click it, run as administrator. I closed it by accident. I was trying to change the font. I'll make it really big. Okay, so I'm gonna validate I have Chocolatey installed, so all I gotta do is type in Choco, and it tells me I have version 0.10.15. Alright, so now typically I like to install conemu, so I'm gonna go ahead and install that. I'm gonna use -y so it doesn't keep prompting me. I like Notepad++, VS Code. Just gonna hit enter there. Okay, looks like it's done. If you look at the output, it also says that it installed .NET 4.5.2, and I presume that's a prerequisite for Visual Studio Code, which is fine. Okay, so one of the packages that I missed was Git, so I'm going to go ahead and press arrow up. I'm just going to type in Git, hit enter. Now I've already installed all the other stuff on that list, so you can see right there it's already telling me I've already installed it, which is fine. So let's go ahead and let it finish. Okay, looks like that's done. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and edit my profile, my PowerShell profile, so that way whenever I open up a PowerShell prompt, it does what I want it to do. Right now, if you notice, if I open up PowerShell, right, it brings us to this CE Windows System 32. That's not a good place to be saving any scripts or anything like that. Typically you want to do this in your home directory. So for example, if I type in cd tilde, it takes me to my home directory, and that's really where you want to create folders and all that kind of stuff and save your work at. So to do that, I'm going to type in Notepad. I'm going to press tab. Hopefully plus plus shows up. There we go. And then I'm typing $profile. And that's a default. Actually, let's look at it before I run it. If I type in $profile, you'll see that there's a path provided here. Now, this doesn't mean the profile actually exists. It just means that's the default path for the profile. So we're going to go ahead and edit this file. So Notepad++ $profile. Oops. See, it says that file doesn't exist. Do you want to create it? Yes, I do. So what the first thing I'm going to do is just give it a cd tilde. And I'm going to go ahead and save it. So now whenever I open up PowerShell, so let's go back to PowerShell over here. So now when I open up PowerShell, it always takes me to that directory by default. Okay, so this error that you see is normal. Let me increase the font here so you can see it. I'm not sure why I didn't keep my font size, but so that's basically what it's telling you is scripts are disabled on this system. So I'm going to go ahead and set execution. I'm going to run this command, set execution policy. Dash execution policy. Now, I do not recommend you do this for your machine. I do this for myself because I just don't like to deal with this. So I'm just giving you a heads up that if you set this, any script that's run will be run without prompting you. So it's not a good security thing. But it's my personal machine, and this is actually a VM running on my Mac, so I don't really care, and I don't want it to ask me every single time. So I'm going to say all. Let me exit this. Open up PowerShell again. And at this point, I probably should just pin this to my taskbar. So I'm just going to tell it pin to taskbar here. Right click and pin to taskbar. I don't really like using Internet Explorer, so I'm going to unpin that. And actually, I'm just going to close it. It doesn't want to close. Oh, here we go. Okay, so you can see that now PowerShell defaults into my home folder. And actually, one of the first things I like to do is once I've set up my initial profile and I'm at my home folder, I like to make a directory called Git. And this is the directory where all the repos or all the code I'm going to be working in. I don't like it to exist directly under my home folder. So actually, I'm going to edit my profile again. And I'm going to set that as my default. And I'm going to start adding comments for myself. You could do CD or you can say set location. I'm just going to use this for now. So let's try it out. Close it. Now that I have it on my taskbar, I can just right click, run as administrator, and boom, there it goes. Now you can see it's directly on the Git directory. Okay, so the other utility that I installed was conemu. So this is another terminal that I like to use. It's not that I don't like using the PowerShell prompt, but conemu lets me customize things even more. So I tend to switch between them. So I'm going to go ahead and open up Conemu. And it's asking me what's my default shell that I want here. And I actually want to use PowerShell as my default. So I'm going to go down here to where it says PowerShell admin. Click on that. And then my theme, I'll modify it after actually. So I'll set my default prompt. So let me maximize this and let me make this bigger. So I'm going to hit this over here, settings. Let's change the font size. I like to use size 20 to make it easy for you guys to see this. Actually, let's make it a little bit bigger. And let's change the theme. So if you go to the general on the left hand side, you can see that there's a drop down for choose your color theme. And if you just click on any of them and then kind of just cycle through with your arrow key, you can see where are your different options. I kind of like the traditional black background, so I think I'm gonna stick with that for now. It's easier to read, easier on my eyes. Okay, so we're not done yet. You can see that yes, now we have a prompt and now we have this Git directory. But actually what I want to do is I want to install a theme for my terminal, and it's called Oh-My-Posh. And for those of you that use Linux or Mac OS, you'll be familiar with this because there's a version for Z shell and I believe other shells as well. So on my Mac, as you guys have seen in the past, I use C shell and I use the same thing as well. But this is the PowerShell version, so this one's called Oh-My-Posh. Okay, so let's go ahead and install Oh-My-Posh. So let's click in here, install. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and install PoshGit module. Okay, so now we got to install another module. Okay, so let's try this out. Let's do set prompt. Okay, you can see that my prompt looks different now. So if I clear my screen, we get this nice looking prompt here. This will only remain for this session, so I'm gonna add this to my profile, and this is how you do it. Notepad ++, right? $profile. Let's go ahead and add this. So what we're gonna do is just create a section here. Call it Oh-My-Posh. So this is just a comment, just so that I can, in the future, when I go back here, I can see what this does. And all those other commands that we ran were to install. This is, since it's these PowerShell modules are already installed on this machine, I'm just going to do an import module. So let me close this. Let's test this out. So let's go ahead and open it again. Oh, oops, I think I made a mistake over here. No problem. Let me close this. Open it again. I'm gonna pin this to my taskbar because it just makes it easier. I don't like seeing the messages from Microsoft, so I'm gonna add a little something here. Clear. I hate seeing the stuff from Microsoft to upgrade PowerShell. So I'm going to go ahead and open it again, test this. See that? I don't like it. But now it gets rid of it. Okay, so far so good. And actually, if we open up PowerShell itself, we should see the same thing. So what I'm going to do is, there's a script that I created that installs all these fonts that support Oh-My-Posh, so that you get, for example, like this lightning bolt and all that. I think this one's just the default one that gets installed, but there are other fonts you can install. Fonts. It's using ConsoleLabz, and alternative font is ConsoleLabz. So let's go back to our PowerShell prompt over here. I guess I can change it to that. Well, it is ConsoleLabz. So something's missing here, that it's not. It looks really funky and I don't like it. I actually don't like the color background either. Let me close it. Should be black background now. Yes. So the font's still funky, and that's okay. I'm gonna show you something. But first, let me install Chrome, because I don't like using Edge. I think it's all one word, Google Chrome. Okay, looks like it's done. Let's go ahead and open up Chrome. Okay, so I'm gonna look for SkunkLabz, Git, fonts, the Nerd Fonts downloader. So what I did here actually is I created a simple PowerShell script that will download all the fonts that are available for use with Oh-My-Posh. Just says the simple script to install the fonts from Powerline Fonts repo in PowerShell to your Windows 10 workstation. So it's just, I mean, some people like to just download and install specific fonts. I usually just get all of them. So down here, I provide a one-liner. I copied a Chocolatey style of one-liners to install things. So I'm gonna paste it in here. This is going to warn me. That's fine. So let's just hit enter. And this is going to take a while. Okay, looks like it's done. Once you see the cleaning up message here, that means it's already done. If we go back over here to ConEmu, settings. So we see all these new fonts, Droid, Sans. Anyway, I spend most of my time on ConEmu anyway, so I'm not too concerned about that. But I do tend to use it sometimes, the regular PowerShell prompt, but I do most of my stuff here. Why ConEmu and not PowerShell prompt? Because it has tabs, so I can keep opening up consoles. I can do 2 things, 3 things, 4 things at the same time, and be able to have multiple shells that I can work from. Alternatively, another thing you can do in ConEmu that you cannot do in a regular PowerShell prompt is you can split. You can have multiple PowerShell prompts, just like in Linux. So you can have one where you're doing one thing, and then the other one you can be doing something else. Which reminds me, so let me install Vim. And while it's doing that, let's go back to this other shell prompt. Let's just create a temporary directory, and let's just, I'm just going to call it new project. I'm going to cd into it. Oops. And I'm going to do a git init. Okay. And you can see that now when you initialize a Git repo or you're inside a Git repo, you can see what branch you're in, which is one of the benefits of using Oh-My-Posh. You can tell that the font is kind of funky there. Let me close this other one. Okay, so, and the reason is the font doesn't support the characters, which is why we downloaded all those fonts. So I'm going to modify this, and I'm going to switch to Meslo. And there's two places. So there's the main console font. So I could leave this font if I want. ConsoleLabz, actually. I think I'm going to leave it because I do kind of like it. But ConsoleLabz does not support some of the special characters, I guess. So you could, under alternative font, you can choose Meslo. And then, oh, it didn't give me all the characters, so I guess I gotta use it for both. So let's use Meslo. Okay, so let's save that. And you can see now that it has the symbol for branch, and it's letting me know that there's no changes. So let's just add a file here. Okay, you can see that now the prompt is telling me that I have one change. There's no diff because this is something new, so I need to add something. So if we do, it just makes it easy because you can tell that the changes were made. And so at this point you could just say git status. So it's indicating to you here that there's a change. So let's do git add. Let's add this file. Git commit -m. This is just a test. I'm not sure what's going on with my VM here. It's going crazy whenever I use certain letters. Git in, no, I can't even type. Git commit. Yeah, I'm not sure what's up with my keyboard in this VM. So let's go back to our profile here. Oops. There's a few things else that I like to do. And I know that it's built into PowerShell, that if you press arrow up, it remembers things. But what I don't like is if you type in history, just like in Linux, or unlike Linux, in Linux it or Unix in general, it remembers everything. It gives you the history of all commands you ran. Again, you could use the arrow up, to go back on all the stuff you've run, but I'd like to be able to see the history of things. So we're going to customize the profile to do that. I'm going to create a new section called history. Actually, I have a repo where I have a sample profile that I've used in the past. So let me open that up actually. So it's in the same GitHub repo. So if we go to SkunkLabz, repositories, I have a repo called dev environment setup. Now I'm not gonna advise to copy this profile exactly because this is actually 3 years old, so we don't need all that. What I wanted from here is the section called remember history. So I'm just gonna copy this part. Yes, I'm gonna use this, and I'll provide a link to these repos, by the way. that I've been talking about. What else do I want to borrow from here? I don't have a Chocolatey profile. I don't use Octopus here. Oh yeah, so I have some, when I switch between prompts, I have some aliases. So when I switch from Linux to PowerShell, there's some commands that it's just muscle memory, so I like to alias them. So these are borrowed.
Two hours later.
Okay, so I think I'm gonna have to install the get child item color module as well. And what that does is it brings color to the prompt, and it gives it, for example, when you do a directory listing, it gives different items different colors. And I don't think I have it installed, so import module. But I'm gonna go over here, and I don't know why my Mac keyboard is doing this, but let me type this over here. I'm just gonna say, I'm gonna do it here instead. So I'm gonna type it in here. This way the profile can go ahead and use this module. Okay, basically it's saying here that there's already a command called alt default. So we're gonna say allow clobber. And I think we're good. Let me close the prompt. Let me make sure this is saved, and I'll let this helicopter fly by. Okay, let's go ahead and open it up again. Okay, good. So if I type in LL, it should give me a directory listing, which is good. It does. Or I can type in dir. Or if I type in VIM, or VI, actually I think it was, it opens up VIM. Actually, before I continue with that, well, let's just commit it. Now I remember what the PS readline module is for. So you see, if I, like, for example, if I type in git and I press arrow up, all it's doing is it's going back in history. However, now I remember the PS readline, why I use it is because just like in Z shell, if you type in partially type a command, you can go up in history of the previously used instances of the command. So right now I can't do that here because it's not set up. So that's another one I want to set up, actually. But we need to install it first over here. Oh, it says it's already installed. Okay, that's fine. So there's 2 lines I want to add. And again, these are in, if you go back to my script over here, in the profile script, there's these 2 lines. Let's start with set PS readline key handler. We're going to copy those. You got to import it as well. Okay, so import module, and then set the keys. Right? Let me close these instances of conemu. So now, let me go back to that Git repo that I have. Oops. See, I don't know why my Mac keyboard is misbehaving inside my VM here, but it is. So if I type in Git now and I press arrow up, instead of going back in history, it's going to search my previous use of the command Git. So this is very, very useful for me. And this is built into Z shell, but in PowerShell you can have the same functionality by using the set ps readline key handler. Keys for up arrow and down arrow, and this is through the ps readline module. I'll be providing a link to my sample profile. Okay, so I did a git commit. So let me erase this here. Commit. Oh, come on, keyboard. Give me a hard time. And then I press arrow up, right? Test. So it's complaining about this. I need to do this first, otherwise I can't commit. Okay, so now I can commit. Okay, so now you notice that once I commit it, the prompt went from having +100 to no changes. Again, this is really useful when you're coding and you're using the prompt a lot. Whether I'm using a PC or a Mac or a Linux machine, I'm always in the prompt. I always try to do everything through a prompt because the nature of what I do, I am always automating things. So I tend to try to do everything in the command line. It's nice to be able to install something like Oh-My-Posh, Oh-My-Z shell, because it brings a sense of continuity between the shells when I switch between them. So whether I'm in PowerShell or Z shell, I get some of the same behavior and it looks similar. In my past videos, you've seen me with my Z shell prompt. So if I go over here to my Mac, you can see that I'm also using something similar, except this prompt looks different. So for example, if I edit here my Z shell RC, the theme here is the GNZH. I can probably do the same thing on Oh-My-Posh. Let's see if they have something similar, or I think it uses its own theming. So here I'm going to bring the page over here. So in Oh-My-Posh, you have similar prompts. So I think right now the default one is agnoster. So let's say I wanted to switch to paradox. So I could say set theme paradox. Save it. Close the shell. Open another one. And now we're using the other one. Okay, so this one's nice because it has the time on the right hand side, but press the ones. Okay. So similar to the other one, except the prompt is down here instead of being on the right. Okay, what else? I think that's it. I mean, just to get started, usually this is what I do. So yeah, so I just wanted to just kind of give you guys what I do to set up. Hopefully it helps you guys. I'd like to hear from you. How do you set up your development environment whenever you get into a new machine or just your personal machine? It'd be good to know. All right. Thank you. Thanks for watching.